Hello and welcome to the 177th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And a hook and ladder across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
I'm honored that you would choose a trick play for me. So glad to be here. Another exciting show. It was an exciting week of college football. And you know what I actually did?
You had a yard sale.
I did. I had a garage sale. But you know what else I did?
You watched Georgia Auburn.
Yeah, what's that noise, though?
Is that the fat stacks of paper you got by having the garage sale?
That's right.
I thought there was someone tumbling down the stairs.
That, too. If you didn't know, I'm tumbling down the stairs while I'm talking to y'all. Weird.
Oh, nice work. Nice work. All right, well, we can't get started without the third amigo in the second city, a man whose Twitter account is a bit less explosive than Zach Smith's. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
Yikes. I did not think I'd ever be in the same sentence as him.
I said a bit less explosive. Oh, man. Well, we're a little late getting our recap show out to you. It was a long weekend for everyone. We took Veterans Day off from recording and pushed it back a day late. So we also want to say thank you to all of our troops and service members, both former and active out there. Thank you for keeping this country safe. We hope that you are enjoying the show, and we will get right into it with some quick slants. So, Josh, you are up first.
All right. Well, my first slant is going to be about two teams putting up a ton of yards and coming up just short on the scoreboard. That is Davidson and Baylor.
Oh, man. I read about the Davidson game.
Yeah, if you haven't heard, the Davidson Wildcats put up a record 789 rushing yards. That's a record over any division of football yet. The San Diego Toreros, they won that FCS matchup 56-52. Over in the Big 12, Baylor racked up 505 yards, yet scored just 14 points thanks to a drive chart that looked like this. 47-yard drive, punt. 56-yard drive, missed field goal. 66-yard drive, missed field goal. 12 yards and a half. 3 yards, punt. 92 yards, touchdown. 70 yards, touchdown. 61 yards, downs. 63 yards, downs. Also, that game featured a brawl. I think the suspension is a steep punishment, but those are the rules of the Big 12, and they at least get to play the second halves. But that is crazy to score that many or put up that many yards and score that few points, Baylor.
Yeah, it really is. So, Coach, I'm going to throw it out to you next, and I know that you were pretty shocked by what happened over in Knoxville this weekend.
Yeah, I was. I was thinking that, Kentucky was going to come out all fired up. They just lost a big game. They're mad. They're upset. They're going against what they consider a pretty big rival in Tennessee. Tennessee just, for whatever reason, they're somewhat competitive, but they don't know how to finish a game. And they're just, kind of just struggling through Jeremy Pruitt's first year, and to be expected, considering what he inherited and where they were when Butch Jones left. But really, in watching this game, they put an old-fashioned kind of clamp down on him. One thing, it was a huge letdown for Kentucky. I feel like they completely choked. Benny Snell was shut down, and not only was he shut down, but he looked just completely worn out. Looked like they've just overused him. The defense looked tired at times as well. I think the biggest key to this game was Tennessee dominating up front on both sides of the ball. Tennessee had a lot of big runs and a lot of big run lanes offensively. They were constantly stuffing Benny Snell in the backfield. It just was ridiculous for a team that had top 10 in scoring defense and all that good stuff. And I thought that Tennessee also protected Jared Guarantano pretty well, and he showed a lot of good pocket poise as a result. So overall, I don't want to take anything from Tennessee. Major props to Tennessee. You won't hear me say that very much. In Kentucky, man, I'm disappointed. Once again, you find a way to have that late season slide that ruins what is potentially a really good to great season.
Tennessee 5-5. Do they score a sixth win to get to a bowl in Pruitt's first year?
Do they have some FCS team this weekend like every other team the SEC does?
That's Vanderbilt.
So yes.
So yes.
Sorry, Ashley.
Yeah.
And Lauren.
All right.
And Coach Page.
Coach Page. Anyway, for my first slant, I'm going to get through this quickly because Wisconsin lost 22-10 to Penn State this weekend. It was another pathetic performance from my Badgers. I will get started with this. Jonathan Taylor, tailback, still really good at football. Rest of the offense.
Tennessee plays Missouri, by the way.
The rest of this offense, garbage. Absolute garbage. This offensive line started the season on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and now they should be, as far as I'm concerned, on the cover of a package of Charmin toilet paper because they are soft. David Edwards, right tackle. He was a preseason All-American. On 25 dropbacks in the game on Saturday, he gave up 7 pressures.
Oops.
Including 1 sack, 1 quarterback knockdown. All-American right guard Bo Benshaw got beat repeatedly. He had 2 penalties and gave up a sack, and he was just abused. Benshaw and the rest of the offensive line, but especially Benshaw and Edwards, were abused by Sharif Miller, a defensive end from Penn State, who was in the backfield on every play, it seemed. He had 2 of Penn State's 5 sacks. Penn State's offense actually did not fare all that well against the Badgers' defense. That unit actually played pretty admirably without nose tackle Olive Sagapolu. But Miles Sanders was still able to get 159 on the ground, helped keep the ball in the Nittany Lions' hands. They had the ball for 8 more minutes than Wisconsin did. Josh, was there anything that Wisconsin can salvage from this god-awful season?
Well, they know their recruiting plan is going to involve a quarterback because I'm not seeing that Cone's the future.
Well, the recruiting back, they have the number 2 recruiting back in the country coming in. Will be an early enroll, so we're hoping he starts next year.
Yeah, so there you go. Got to hope that he's the real deal.
I know Coach has seen him on film. The Graham Mertz era is coming.
It can't get here fast enough.
Mind you, Graham Mertz by himself this weekend in his high school playoff game threw for, I think, 450 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, for Blue Valley North out there in Kansas.
Nice.
Kansas.
Wisconsin next year will have 3 players from the state of Kansas on their roster. Anyway.
So will University of Kansas. Because I believe they have 1 recruit right now.
Well, Bluetooth is going to get some great recruits. That's who they're hiring. You know that, right?
Ooh.
Wait.
Do they have reception in Lawrence for that?
I think part of his contract is they have to build up a cell tower right next to campus.
Yeah, I don't know if Google Fiber is there yet out there in Lawrence. So
I hope I hope Todd Graham listens to the show and is so enraged by that when he gets another coaching job, he just wears the most ridiculous 1980s headphones as possible.
He looks like Lord Helmet.
God. Okay, Josh, what have you got for your second slant?
Well, my second slant was supposed to be looking at the division races, and it ballooned. It's way too long to be a slant, so turn it into kind of a new section of the show of I'm just going to give the scenarios, and you guys pick a winner now that we're towards the end. So the American East, we got Central Florida. They're undefeated, but Temple and Cincy are each 5-1. Owls have that head-to-head win over Cincinnati, but UCF has the head-to-head over Temple. So Knights' victory this week at Cincinnati will wrap up the division. Does that happen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. In the American West, we got SMU, Houston, and Tulane. They're all 4-2. But the Ponies have tiebreakers over both teams. Tulane heads to Houston next, so one of those teams' run will essentially end. After that game, Houston has Memphis, and Tulane has Navy. SMU has that tricky Memphis team, but then ends with a struggling Tulsa team. Memphis could win out, and maybe with some funky tiebreakers, they get the division, but I haven't crunched those numbers all the way. So I guess my question is, does the surprise ponies hang on to win the division?
Coach, I'll let you answer that first.
Ooh, I'm going to say no for right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say no as well. I still think Houston's going to win. I think Houston wins their last two, and SMU drops the game to Memphis.
Fair enough. But that would work out. So then the ACC, Clemson's already clinched the Atlantic. The Coastal, Pitt controls their own destiny, but they are done at home. They end with back-to-back road trips to Wake Forest and Miami, although after 492 yards in the rout over Virginia Tech, I think they are clearly playing the best. They also have the tiebreaker over Virginia and Georgia Tech, second and third teams in the division. Pitt does not choke this away, right?
Not a chance.
No.
All right. So the Big 12, it's a mess. Oklahoma, West Virginia, Texas, and Iowa State are all alive in the race for the title game, but they face some games against each other. For instance, Oklahoma and West Virginia play each other. Texas and Iowa State play each other. Out of those four teams, how do you see this shaking out?
I'll go first. I think Iowa State comes out of this heap. I think it's going to be Iowa State, Oklahoma.
All right.
Yeah, I'm actually with Coach 100% on that. I definitely got Iowa State.
Ooh, interesting. All right. I like it.
I really believe in this Cyclone team.
Well, they're certainly fun to watch. So it's a great story.
And they've got a real quarterback now.
Yeah, that is.
They always had quarterbacks who were sort of like patchwork, could like do a little bit with their arm, do a little bit with their legs. But what they've got now is, I mean, their coach is Matt Campbell is going to be one of the hottest names in the country. They've
got legitimate weapons. I mean, they've got Hakeem Butler, David
Montgomery. Yeah.
He gets paid a ton, though. That's the thing. I think people look at Iowa State and go, "Oh, he must make like $900,000."
No, he makes like $2.5 million, right?
Yeah, he's really well compensated, and he's at a power school, and that conference still feels winnable because Oklahoma refuses to play defense, and Texas is coached by an idiot.
Go on.
So the Big Ten East, Michigan and Ohio State will decide things in Columbus, even if they each lose next weekend. They both have tiebreakers over Michigan State and Penn State. So the division is down to those two, regardless.
Wait, Rutgers can't make it?
Regrettably, no.
Alas.
Well, there goes my pick.
So who do you got in the game?
Matt?
I'm going meat chicken. This is their year. This is the year. Everything going on around this Ohio State program right now. You know, it's. I don't want to say it's tearing the program apart, but it's not their year, and I think that this is if it's ever going to happen in Michigan, this is the year. So.
All right.
Yeah. I think that Michigan's defense is good enough to stop Ohio State, and I think they can get just enough with a run game with Karan Higdon going that they're going to win like a 17-14 kind of game. Is it in the Big House this year?
I'll double check that.
I'll look that up while you go to the next division.
Did Coach give his answer?
Yeah, I'm going with the man who wears Dockers and Jordans at the same time.
Khakis. All right.
The game is
so the Big Ten.
The game is in Columbus.
Yeah.
It don't matter. I think Ohio State's just off. I mean, I watch it. We'll talk about that game with Michigan State later, but they're just. I'm not buying them.
Big Ten West is wrapped up, regrettably, in a game that we will also be talking about later. Regrettably, as a Hawkeye fan, hats off to Northwestern. Well done by those guys. They can't win anything other than Big Ten West games. It's crazy. But they've certainly won the games that matter the most. Over in the Conference USA, we got Middle Tennessee atop the Eastern Division at 6-1. Florida International is sitting there at 5-1, and 4-2 Marshall is also kind of lurking around.
I picked Marshall at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So the Raiders beat Marshall, but lost to FIU. The Panthers and the Herd haven't faced each other yet. MTSU has just one league game left against UAB in the finale, which matters because UAB has already clinched the West. So there's a potential for UAB to maybe rest players, or maybe they will want to get the game back at home. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So basically the Raiders more or less have the division, but some funky stuff still happens. Do either of you see funky stuff happening?
To be honest with you, I would love to say yes and say FIU is going to come away with this division because I think FIU will beat Marshall, but I just don't see anything else happening besides the Blue Raiders winning this division.
Yeah, I don't think FIU is going to beat Marshall, so by default, I'm taking MTSU.
All right. And as I mentioned, the Blazers, great story. They've already wrapped up Conference USA West. Over in the MAC, the Bulls of Buffalo are 6-0, but Ohio at 4-2 is not mathematically eliminated yet because UB and Ohio haven't played each other. Still, Ohio would need to win out and have Buffalo lose out to sneak in, except the Bulls' last game is against god-awful Bowling Green, so even with a major upset, I don't see how Ohio steals this division.
I picked Buffalo at the beginning of the year, and I feel good about it.
Yeah,
I agree with you there. They're not going to blow that.
Yeah. And just tonight, we get to update this in the MAC West. Northern Illinois clinches thanks to Western Michigan coming up just short in overtime against Ball State.
All right.
So let's move on to the Mountain West. The Mountain Division is down to just two teams, just like the Big Ten. Utah State and Boise are cleared of everyone else. They play each other in Boise in the finale. Who wins that winner-take-all game?
Coach?
I don't know.
Well, we'll probably preview it, so maybe we'll hold off.
I think we'll tease that.
Yeah, we'll keep some drama in it. That's the scenario, though. So,
stay tuned.
Yeah, the Mountain West, a stunner last weekend. San Diego State lost to UNLV. That dropped them to 4-2 in league. That kept Fresno, who just lost their first league game, atop the division. Yep. So San Diego State and Fresno, they play each other next week in a huge showdown. SDSU then hosts a reeling Hawaii team, and Fresno hosts an awful San Jose State team. Complicating things is Nevada. They have the head-to-head win over the Aztecs, but lost to Fresno. Nevada has trips to San Jose and UNLV to wrap up. So there's still a lot of scenarios in play. It's Fresno's at the moment. Do they hang on?
Yes.
Fresno is the best team in the state of California.
Ooh, that's a hot take. I like that.
All right.
San Diego just won the Pioneer and gave up 789 rushing yards, though, and still won the game. So just saying.
Well, I'd be a little bit more worried about Cal Poly.
The Pac-12 North is just like a few of the other divisions where Washington and Wazoo are so clear of the third-place team, Stanford, that doesn't matter what happens. It's going to be the Apple Cup deciding things.
And we'll preview that one.
Yeah, so just that's the scenario. The Pac-12 South, Utah got that huge win over Oregon to move to 5-3. They just have Colorado left. They're struggling, but it is on the road. Because their finale is against BYU. So Arizona State has the tiebreaker over Utah, so they actually control their own destiny. But they have back-to-back roadies to Oregon and Arizona, so that won't be easy. My silly pick, Arizona, is still mathematically in it. They just need to upset Wazoo next weekend to stay in the hunt. Does
Arizona State?
Yeah. Does Arizona
lose to Colorado?
Yeah. Does Arizona State win out, or does Utah posting those 5 conference wins in the clubhouse, possibly getting a 6th one? Are they feeling good?
Coach, I'll let you answer that first.
That's a tough one to answer. I think Utah is gonna hold up. I think Arizona State is just quite ready, maybe, but I'm gonna go with Utah.
I picked Utah before the season started, so why change now?
The only conference to have both divisions wrapped up is Coach's SEC, so we'll skip right to the Sun Belt. They do it now.
I think Georgia's going to win the East.
I think Alabama in the West, too.
Yeah, the Sun Belt,
that's a tight race.
Sun Belt, they went to divisions for the first time this season, so they will have a title game in the East. We've got Georgia Southern, who just got knocked off by Troy, so that's a huge tiebreaker in that division, as the Trojans are 6-0, but they still have to face 5-1 Appalachian State. That Georgia Southern team is mathematically sniffing around still at 4-2, but realistically, they're just excited about heading to a bowl game. So Troy App will probably preview that game, right?
Yes,
We'll
absolutely.
We'll just tease it now. Sorry, Mountaineers fans, no one getting picked tonight. The Sun Belt West, we end with the most messed up division. So Louisiana Monroe is technically leading things at 4-2, but they haven't faced either Arkansas State or Louisiana. I still like to call them Louisiana Lafayette for clarity, but Louisiana. And those two programs are sitting at 3-3. So Monroe has by far the hardest stretch left. So in addition to the Warhawks, Arky State has a trip to awful Texas State, and the Raging Cajuns host a really bad South Alabama team. I think Arkansas State is the best of these three, but honestly, this division is a tangled mess right now. Do you guys have any random picks?
I mean, I'm going to default to I default to Arkansas State at this point. Like I can't.
Fair enough.
I don't. I mean, we follow Sunbelt football more than most people, and even after that, I still have no idea. Like I'm going to go with Arkansas State just because at this point I trust in Arkansas State more than I trust in pretty much any other school, at least in that division.
Until tonight, when I crunched these numbers, did you guys realize the Warhawks were leading their division?
I did because I was looking up some Caleb Evans stats earlier.
Things you will only hear on Illegal Motion.
Well,
Coach, do you have an opinion on this absolute jumbled mess of a division?
I think it is going to win.
All right. Well, Coach, speaking of winning or not winning in this case, the Seminoles, your father's alma mater, are, in the words of the immortal Vince Lombardi, what the hell's going on out here?
I think Vince Lombardi would just quit after watching these Seminoles, but where do I start? Okay, so their game against Notre Dame is just a microcosm of what their season's been like. So what do we know? Their offensive line is horrendous. The team is unorganized all around, all phases of the game. Special teams is really bad. They had a block extra point returned for 2 points after one of their lone bright spots, and Cam Akers scored a touchdown. Let's see. They gave up just about every jump ball. They got mossed. There was a jump ball to Claypool early in the first quarter that kind of set the tone for the game. They made Brandon Wimbush look like Russell Wilson. They had really bad turnovers. The Cam Akers fumble was atrocious. The Francois interception was, not necessarily his fault, but it was just bad team-wise. It necessarily wasn't on Francois, but it was just bad team-wise. Notre Dame basically just did whatever they wanted. And staying with this theme in the state of Florida, if you also wanted to watch and do a face palm, I'm looking at you, Miami. Mark Richt, there was a certain look that he had on his face in the entire 2015 season, the year he got fired. He has that same look on his face. It's that exhausted, checked out, I'm ready to get the hell out of here face that he has on. He's doing weird things with the quarterback position, which he started some third stringer, Fatone Bauta, in 2015 that was barely making scout team reps, and he just starts him against Florida. He's doing some similar stuff there with their quarterbacks and Perry and whoever, Joe Schmo, Johnny Longball down the street. So, the fans are fed up with him, and I think he's just exhausted. And personally, he looks unhealthy. He looks like he just aged about 27 years, and he really, for his own sake, maybe just need to step out of coaching for a year or two and kind of reevaluate what he wants to do. And Honestly, I don't know how it's got that bad. And then the University of Florida, they are a mess. After rising all the way up to 9th in the country, they dropped 2 straight to Georgia and Missouri, and then they went down to the wire with a just declining South Carolina team that's just somehow getting worse as the season goes on. I don't know what to say about the big three in the entire state of Florida. You're in the most talent-rich state in the union, and you can't find a quarterback. You can't find offensive linemen. You can't find great skill guys that are dynamic and electric. And I'm especially looking at you, Miami. You don't even have to go above I-4 to get all your talent. You ever heard of this thing that Howard Schnellenberger called the state of Miami? Yeah, you become an expert at that state. You don't have to do any other recruiting. This is set up so that you can be the laziest recruiter in all of college football. You don't go north of I-4. You sign your 25 kids from Miami, and you win the national championship. That's how good the talent is down there in South Florida. It is nasty. All right,
I mean, Coach, it's tough to break through when Kansas is reeling them all in.
I know, right? I mean,
my biggest
you
question.
better watch out because Bluetooth is going to be working in the state of Florida. There's really good cell reception there.
My biggest question is that, like, what is Mark Richt doing with the quarterbacks? Like,
I wish I could tell you.
You watched him up close. How long was he at Georgia? Like 12, 13 years, something like that?
He was there 16 years. I've never seen him do that.
I don't remember him juggling quarterbacks like this ever.
Because he didn't. He
would stick with guys through thick and thin. And, like, now, like, Malik Rozier has a couple bags. Oh, it's Perry. Perry has 2 bad series. Oh, back to Rozier. Back to Perry. Back to Rozier. Like,
the closest it ever got to a 2-quarterback system was when he had DJ Shockley and David Green.
But DJ Shockley was basically like he was a wildcat back for them, essentially. Wasn't he?
No, he was more than that. When
he was a starter, he was obviously a quarterback. But I felt like when he came in relief of David Green.
They brought him in like every 3rd series, and he would come in and he would manage that series however it went. He wasn't necessarily what they're doing.
But Rick is acting like he's freaking Steve Spurrier in 1997 Florida. Like,
I don't get it, and that's not him at all.
He's not coaching him up. Josh, which of these 3 programs is in the worst state right now? It's Florida State, right?
Yeah. I'm not Josh, but yes.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would say about why Miami might be the worst case is if they do move on from Mark Richt or Mark Richt retires, then they're doing a coaching search in a year where I'm not entirely sure who the, like, huge get is, because I'm just not seeing, like, a huge can't-miss person out there.
Graham.
Whereas at least Florida State can give Willie Taggart another year.
Mm-hmm.
At least Dan Mullen is a legit coach, and I think we could say Florida fell apart here in the back end of their season, but they had exceeded all expectations, and they already had a huge upset with LSU. I mean, I'm fine with where the Gators are at.
Yeah, I agree with you. Florida has the most upside of the 3, and I think Florida State has the longest way to go. Florida State is just a mess, dude.
What about if he leaves? What about Charlie Strong for Miami?
I mean, I can't think of a more perfect candidate.
I don't think he's even doing well enough at South Florida, quite frankly. They're 3-3.
I'm thinking Lane Kiffin.
The Kiff. He would fit in perfectly.
I'm thinking Lane Kiffin would be a shoo-in for that job, but
I'm thinking the interesting one, the next like huge name that I'm curious if anyone pries him away really is Brett Venables.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But he's $2 million as a coordinator. Is he really?
That's the top.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Dave Aranda.
Yeah,
But I feel like Venables is more of, I think, a head coach material. I think Aranda is very content being a defensive coordinator and doesn't really want the spotlight of being a head coach. Just in the, in what I've seen from him between his time at Wisconsin and LSU. Like, he's not a guy who really likes the cameras and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, well, we need to move on. I'm going to get through my second slant very quickly. I previewed a couple of Pac-12 games on Thursday's show. I'm going to take a look back at them. We're going to start in Boulder, where Colorado lost their fifth straight game, this time 31-7 to Washington State. Gardner Minshew had another big game. This time he had 335 through the air, 3 total touchdowns. Best moment of the game, though, came in the after-game interviews. Mike Leach donned a mustache as an homage to his stud quarterback and looked good doing it. All that's left for the Cougs is a home game with Arizona before the Apple Cup, as Josh mentioned, that will decide the North Championship in the Pac-12. Elsewhere for Utah, no Tyler Huntley, no Zach Moss, no problem. The Utes ended up beating Oregon at home 32-25. New Utah quarterback Jason Shelley ran for 2 scores, didn't turn the ball over. Backup running back Armand Shine gave 174 on the ground in his first start. Real star for the Utes, though, was their kicker, Matt Gay. Josh, I know you like this. He was 6 for 6 for field goals, including a 55-yarder. That's what we call sound in the third phase. For the Ducks, Justin Herbert was solid per usual, but as a team, Oregon only got 3.7 yards per carry, and they were shockingly outgained by the Utes by nearly 100 yards. So that, kept Utah atop the Pac-12 South, but as Josh mentioned earlier, Arizona State still has, their own destiny in their own hands.
I was so pleasantly surprised by Utah. I really did not know what to expect once falling down with injury. That was awesome.
Same. Yeah, that was really cool to see. I mean, their defense stepped up. I mean, I know they only scored 20. They still scored 25. Oregon did, but that was a great defensive performance from Utah. And Matt Gay, man, like 6 for 6 on field goals.
I mean, you got to do that to help out a kid making, a huge spot start due to injury.
First start of his career. So, all right. Before we get to the pop quiz, quick spread formations recap. Coach was our winner of the week. He went 4-2. I was 2-4, and Josh, what has become commonplace, you were 1-5.
Perfect.
We were all on the wrong side of that Kentucky-Tennessee game, which Coach talked about. Coach was the only one of us who had Boise at +2.5, and they won outright. Coach and I both had Indiana over Maryland. Josh, you were the only one on Temple against Houston. They were 4.5-point dogs, and they still won outright. Coach had Kansas covering the 10.5-point spread, and Coach and I both had Rutgers covering that 40-pointer against Michigan. For the season, I'm still in the lead 27-32-1, followed by Coach at 24-35-1. Josh, I'm a little worried. You were 19-40-1.
Hey, baby.
40-1. That is good for a solid 32% win rate.
I got him right. I got him right where I want him. I just need to have a second half strong finale. I'm evaluating.
Josh, I got some bad news. We're like 3/4 of the way through the season.
No, it's fine. I got the bowl games. I got the title games. I've got the last 2 weeks. It's fine.
And you have the FCS playoffs.
Yeah. I'm not worried at all.
All right.
What am I, 19-41-1?
19-40-1.
Yeah, I'm going to end 56-41-1.
All right.
I'm going to go on a hot streak. Just you wait.
I'll ride that heater. All right. So, guys, this weekend, Kyler Murray and UL Monroe's Caleb Evans became the 18th and 19th players since the year 2000 to collect 5 career games with more than 300 yards passing and 50 yards rushing. Your job to name the other 17 players. So, Coach, I will start with you.
5 career games with more than 300 yards passing and 50 yards rushing.
Yep, in the same game.
All right. War Cam Eagle.
Cam Newton?
Yes.
I don't know if he played enough games.
He did not play enough, Coach. He didn't even he has at most 2.
Ooh.
So that is an X for him. He did not even have 2 by my count.
Oh.
Sorry, Coach. That is a strike. Josh, you're up.
Well, when you posed this question in our show notes, the first name that popped into my head is a lot to do with, well, his former coach just got canned, and that's Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson, he is number one in since the year 2000. He has 10 such games, but Louisville only 6-4 in those games.
I think that might help explain why a certain motorcycle enthusiast is no longer crashing on the sideline.
All right. Coach, you're up.
He's crashing elsewhere. I'm going to make up for my horrendous first choice, and I'm going to say this guy won the Heisman Trophy. So go ahead and give me strike two, Marcus Mariota.
Marcus Mariota, that is correct. He is tied for third. He has 7 such games.
Ooh, great minds, Coach. That was my next name. That means I'm going to drop down to my third name and go with yet another Heisman Trophy winner. That was RG3 and his great career in Baylor.
RG3 did indeed have 5 such games. Coach.
All right. Give me another Louisville quarterback, but this one did not play for Harley Davidson extraordinaire. This one played for Charlie Strong. Give me Teddy Bridgewater.
Ooh, Teddy Bridgewater. Sorry, Coach. That is going to be strike 2.
It's a good guess, though. I like that. That's
Sweet.
It's a little off the path right there. All right. Well, I don't know if he passed for enough yards, but this guy was damn mobile. So I went with a little bit of a gamble. I'm going to go with South Florida's great collegiate quarterback, Quentin Flowers.
Ooh, I love that guess. He came up just short, though. He had 4.
That'll poop.
Not a bad guess, though, Josh. Not a bad guess. Coach.
This guy was more of a battering ram than a quarterback in some instances. He made a famous guarantee, and he's on TV right now, and he plays minor league baseball.
Would that be one Timothy Tebow?
Timothy Tebow.
Timothy, Coach, I'm sorry. He did not.
Timothy?
Your third strike.
Oh.
All he did was run and throw deep balls.
He did not hit the threshold. So far as I can tell, he had 2 such games in his career that he did that. 2.
That's a shame.
All right, Josh, you've already won. Do you have any other names?
2 at least to get to Georgia.
Those might have been the 2. The last few names that I would have guessed, maybe a guy who has an outside chance at winning the Heisman this year if things break his way. Mackenzie Milton would have been a name.
That's correct. He has 6.
I don't know if he played enough games, but it feels like Johnny Manziel always had monster games.
Johnny Football had 7.
Oh, wow. That was kind of where I tapped out. I was thinking maybe Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson has 5.
And then that was the rest of my list. I didn't have anyone else past that.
Guys you were missing. You had guys got Lamar Jackson number 1. Then we had Chase Clement from Rice. Don't know if you remember him from the.
I do not remember him. I'm sorry.
He had 8 such games. Rice went 7-1 in those. So Rice good at football. Who would have guessed? You guys missed Trevon Boykin, recently of TCU.
Fantastic college quarterback.
Greg Ward Jr. from Houston.
Another fantastic college quarterback.
Gerard Johnson from Texas A&M.
Don't remember him.
JT Barrett from Ohio State.
Heard of him.
Taj Boyd from Clemson.
The one that Lane Kiffin wouldn't take because he's never taken a snap under center.
Speaking of Lane Kiffin, former Tennessee quarterback Josh Dobbs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I believe he had about 800 yards passing and about 400 yards rushing on Iowa in a bowl game.
Yeah. Nevada quarterback Cody Fajardo who I was not from. I saw Nevada quarterback on there. I would assume it would have been Colin Kaepernick. He only had 3 such games, but Fajardo had 5 from 2011 to 2014. You mentioned RG3, Josh Harris from Bowling Green back in the early 2000s, and finally Dan Lefevre from Central Michigan.
Oh, great college quarterback.
Yeah. So good work, Josh. A-, Coach C-.
A-?
Yeah. You had 1 strike. I can't give you an A.
That takes it from an A+ to an A.
Not in this grading system. You're graded on curves.
Okay.
I got a 72.
Yeah, you got a 72. Josh gets a 92. All right, let's hit some deep roots, guys. We'll start with the only win of the weekend for the 3 of us in our preferred teams. Georgia had a pretty dominant showing in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Coach, DeAndre Swift starting to make dog fans say Nick and Sony who?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but he's pretty close.
I know DeAndre and Elijah are about as close as you're going to get to Nick and Sony.
Yeah, although Elijah's got some ground to make up on Chubb, but
Yeah.
As you saw Chubb's performance this past Sunday against the Falcons, but DeAndre Swift is. I swear he doesn't cut; he teleports. It's incredible. He just so fast, accelerating in and out of his cuts. It's unreal.
Yeah, Coach, I was watching this. And I think I texted you something to that to that notion. Just like DeAndre Swift doesn't like you said, he doesn't just cut. He doesn't just teleport. He's just magically in a new place.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's unreal. And it goes back, I've talked about this many times. That running back class that is currently sophomores is unbelievable.
Yeah, you got Najee Harris. I would say, I would venture to say that DeAndre Swift might be number 1 in that list.
I think Jonathan Taylor might have something to say about that.
And then Jonathan Taylor.
Travis Etienne.
You can make arguments for Etienne, Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Cam Akers.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the guy who's over at USC. It's not a Cedric Ware. It's the other guy in the backfield there who wears number 7. I'm blanking on his name right now. But yeah, that running back class is absolutely unbelievable. It could go down in history as one of the greatest running back classes in collegiate football history.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch, no doubt. But Georgia's defense just completely answered the call. After that first series, once Auburn kind of got through their, first 15 script and they hit the Wildcat, weak side rollout touchdown, I knew they were screwed because they had to empty all their bag of tricks in the first quarter, which a lot of times means you have no answers, and Gus Malzahn just looked lost on the sideline all night long. He even muttered the words, "They better not fire me." They caught that on Twitter, and it went kind of viral. If you need to go check it out, Gus Malzahn basically saying he either says they better not fire me or someone's going to fire me. I'm out of a bleeping job. Not a good look for Malzahn. Offensively, Stidham. Their offensive line was what we thought they were. They were horrendous. They were giving up pressure all night long. Stidham was constantly uncomfortable, getting hit, getting hurried, getting flushed from the pocket, not having time to get off of his first read and check down. Their running game was wildly inconsistent, although there were some good plays here and there. Never really had enough to get things going. They were horrendous on third down, especially third and short. Special teams was okay. They didn't really do a whole lot in special teams. I thought they had a decent punt coverage night. Defensively for Auburn, they had no answer for DeAndre Swift. They had no answer for Elijah Holyfield. They had no answer for the Georgia receiving core. Jake Fromm, again, had another huge night. And it was just all around one of those games that was that was awesome. Jake Fromm, 13 of 20 for 193 and 2 touchdowns. When you don't have to throw more than 20 passes and you can win 27-10, and could have been worse. That's incredible. But honestly, the talk of the game is going to go, and I'll leave this with you guys, because the Georgia in me thought it was freaking awesome, even though we didn't hit it. But you kind of wonder, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? I don't get it, but I freaking love it. Was the fake field goal at the end of the game? So what would you guys? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Josh?
I didn't see a down of this game. I'm just wondering if it was one of those where they didn't want to kick the field goal to add more points. They deliberately wanted to go for it. And with a low-stakes thing, they wanted to just try out a fake because they might have a fake built off that fake that they would then want to use against, say, Alabama in the SEC title game.
That was my thoughts. Like, put something on film, but also kind of like an FU as well.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, well, let's head over then.
Well, I did have a question for Coach, though, as someone who did not see this game, and I was just double checking the box score and stuff and trying to get a snapshot on what in the world happened. I couldn't help but notice that Auburn did average 5 yards a carry, yet they only ran it 20 times, and their leading rusher had 4 carries, yet they tried to chuck it 36 times. Was that just the 17-point second quarter explosion put Auburn in a big enough hole that they had to abandon their game plan, or feels like Auburn should have run the ball a little bit more?
Yeah, they should have. I think they were inconsistent. They honestly just didn't have a lot of plays. Total plays. They weren't on the field very much. I mean, they had a lot of 3-and-outs. They got behind the sticks a lot, so down and distance kind of dictated their game plan. And then when they would try to run it in situations like 3rd and short, they'd get stuffed. So they felt like they needed to abandon it and throw it more and throw more screens and things like that. And it just showed that they didn't have really a feel of the game. I mean, I think they could have come out even after that 17-point swing, still stick with your game plan, run it, get a touchdown. It's game on. It's a 10-point game on. You're not in a hole at all, and I think they panicked a little bit.
All right. Well, let's head to the flip side of our team's coins. Iowa had another rough go of it this weekend. Northwestern came to Kinnick and won 14-10. Josh, I doubt Brian Ferentz will be winning the Broyles Award this year, but is there something else wrong with the offense besides the play calling?
Yeah, there's a tons of things wrong with stuff other than the play calling. The first is Nate Stanley. Maybe it's mental. Maybe he's had some really bad luck of hitting his thumb multiple times on player helmets as he follows through. So maybe his hand is just a mangled mess. Frankly, he was making these throws earlier in the year. So I think it's just he's plateaued as a player. But essentially, he overthrows literally every deep ball. He's got no accuracy on deep balls. And he now checks down a ton. And so he's kind of turtling. And he basically throws about 100-mile-an-hour fastball every throw. Doesn't matter if it's a tight end, running back, or wide receiver. And there's very few players that have the hands in college to catch a rocket. And so he's just not a reliable quarterback. He finished 27 of 41 for 269 yards, just 1 touchdown, no picks. And I was even surprised that he only had 14 incompletions. Feels like every throw he has is an incompletion. And I think the only reason he racked up 27 completed passes was he was checking down a whole lot. And then you get to the running game. People think Iowa has this, mind-crushing, soul-sucking, zone-blocking scheme that produces tons and tons of rushing yards. We we stink at running the ball. We're 90th in the country. We've been a substandard rushing team for several years now. Stop perpetrating this lie. We stink at running the ball. And I think a lot of it is teams know our zone blocking. It's no longer unique. It's not 2000 anymore, where we're the only college program running it, and it was something that Ferentz brought from the NFL. It's an old trick. Most teams run something similar to it. And then on top of that, our best running back is clearly Mekhi Sargent. He only got 10 carries because we're running a stupid three-headed monster rushing attack. And in about the 4-minute drill, he has just a tough luck fumble. He was securing the ball. He just got hit in an awkward place. It looked like the one where the helmet hits you perfectly on the elbow, and he probably got a funny bone thing. And it was just a bad luck fumble. It was not his fault. But Ferentz benches you the second you fumble it. And so with the 2-minute drill then, he has in a different back. And this back carries the ball high and tight? No, of course not. He has it dangling out there, not securing it at all, and it gets poked out. It gets punched out.
Which back was that, Joe? Was that Torn Young?
No, that was Ivory Kelly Martin.
Oh, okay.
Torn Young is awesome. Torn Young is a bulldozer. It should be Mekhi Sargent is the feature back. Torn Young is the third down back.
Torn Young, by the way, from Madison.
Yeah. Ivory Kelly Martin, he's a nice kid. He has, I think, the highest upside of these guys because he is the fastest, but he doesn't have the ball security of the others. He doesn't see the plays develop as well. And, he's a sophomore. He's gotten a lot of experience this year, but it's just clear when you watch the games that he is not up to par of the other two. So we get personnel decisions. We get quarterback who's not very good anymore. And so you can't really put those things on Brian Ferentz. The other thing, in addition to play calling, I don't know where this is coming from. I'm going to assume it's coming from the head man, Kirk Ferentz. But Noah Fant, 1 target, 1 reception, 0 yards. He played 9 snaps in the second half. So he either has an undisclosed injury that the coaching staff is too chicken to tell people about, or he's in Kirk Ferentz's doghouse for some reason, because people think that he's had a lot fewer game snaps since the Penn State debacle, when he was doing the right thing, trying to tell the wide receiver of an audible that our idiot quarterback shouldn't have done. So Ferentz has totally bungled this thing. They put up 10 points against Northwestern. A lot of that was gifted by an interception that set up a very short field for Iowa's lone touchdown. 2 weeks ago against Penn State, the offense didn't even produce any points. They all came from the defense or special teams. This thing has gone off the rails. I think most Iowa fans assume they're going to get smoked by Nebraska in 2 weeks because Nebraska has a good offense. And a lot of Iowa fans are sort of saying, we'll probably lose to Illinois too because we can't score. The team is atrocious. And it's all because of terrible play calling, but also terrible play by your quarterback and terrible personnel decision by not playing your best players. It's idiotic. Hats off to Northwestern. That was a long thing about how Iowa sucks. Let's talk about Northwestern. Their defense has a really good job of making you one-dimensional. They find a way to produce just enough points. They find ways to have some takeaways. They gave Michigan all they could handle. I'm not optimistic for Northwestern winning the Big Ten title game. But look, they just smoked the Big Ten West this year, and they deserve going to Indianapolis. It's not like they got some weird lucky stuff like they caught Iowa and Wisconsin after tons and tons of injuries. Wisconsin's a little banged up, but Iowa's not. Northwestern beat Purdue opening week when both teams were fully healthy. Northwestern's earned this. Hats off to them. And how fun would that be if in their rematch they almost beat Michigan in Evanston a few weeks ago? How awesome would it be if they pulled off that monumental upset?
That would be great for them and terrible for the Big Ten.
Yeah, who cares?
Coach,
until we have at least an 18 playoff, I don't acknowledge any of these champions.
Coach, if you were, you're an offensive coordinator, what's the prescription for Iowa here? Is it just simply get the ball to Noah Fant more, or what?
Yeah, I mean, you got to find something to hang your hat on. I mean, you got to find some sort of balance. You got to find what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and you got to stick to it. And I get that you don't want fumbles. I get that all that is bad, and not taking care of the ball is a serious issue. But I mean, the kid fumbled. You take care of it in practice, and you give him a chance to go back out there, especially if he's a good player for you. But I think it comes down to very simply having faith in your guys, having a rhythm for the game, or having a feel of how the game is going and what you're successful at doing, which honestly I watched kind of like an extended highlight. I didn't really catch much. I didn't catch the entire game, but I watched like an extended highlight, and it looked like Iowa was doing some good things early on in the passing game, especially and the touchdown they hit was a really good looking play action pass where Stanley, that was honestly probably the only, according to Josh, it was the only good throw he made. But where is that kind of stuff? I kind of feel like they just kind of played right into Northwestern's hands, and they kind of went away with what was doing well for them, or seemingly doing well for them. And I just think you've got to have a little bit more awareness of how the game is going, how the flow of the game is going.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's head over to Bedlam now. It was a wild one in Norman. Sooners eking out the win over the Pokes, 48-47. Coach, Oklahoma State went for it for 2 with about a minute left to go for the win. They didn't get it, but do you like the call for them there?
I don't. Not in that situation.
I mean, their kicker had missed the last extra point that he attempted.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't like that. I think you need to, as good as you were, again, Oklahoma's not going to stop you. Okay. I think they could have won that game in overtime. Oklahoma's defense was flat, worn out. Neither team was really stopping each other. So I kind of get why he did it. I don't think I would have done it, because I think Oklahoma State was starting to get the momentum back after those, costly turnovers and missed extra points, or the missed extra point, I should say. So I don't know. I mean, my gut tells me in that particular situation, kick the extra point and let's go. But I trust Mike Gundy. He's done this a few times. So, but if you're asking me, that's what my gut tells me.
All right, Josh. I mean, you always pick Oklahoma in this game, so you weren't.
I mean, like I predicted, the Sooners won it handily, going away, no worries in this one at all.
What did you take out of this one?
Well, I think normally, if this had been a vintage Oklahoma State team, like of the last few years, where, kick the extra point, play for overtime, stay in contention for the Big 12 title game. If this had been like a couple years ago, Oklahoma State transported to 2018, I think that's the smart play. But for the Pokes, they're a 500 ball club overall. They're out of the title race in the Big 12. The pass was there. It just wasn't a good throw.
Yeah, the play call itself was not that bad. He was actually wide open.
Yeah, I think I can live with it. If Oklahoma State had their Big 12 title aspirations crushed on a missed 2-point conversion, I would agree with Coach. That's a huge gamble on just one play. But when you're a struggling Oklahoma State team, you're a younger team.
You're not going to the Big 12 title game this year.
Yeah, you're not your vintage self. Why not have some fun with it? And hell, you said yourself, the kicker hadn't been that hot. Why not? Why not just try for it? Why the hell not?
I'm a little bit actually. I'm kind of with you there. I like the decision. I think it's kind of ballsy by the mullet to do that, but I have no qualms with it. It's a road game, and in a road contest, you go for the win on the road. You go for the tide home. You go for the win on the road. So
I think a bigger issue though is Coach mentioned that Oklahoma wasn't going to stop Oklahoma State in overtime. I don't know how Oklahoma State was going to stop Oklahoma in overtime. The Sooners had over 700 yards of offense.
Yeah. So I mean that's at this point what we consider a classic Big 12 game.
It might have gone to about 10 overtimes.
That would have been fun. All right, let's head back to the Big 10 in a game that started off as the ugliest game of the weekend and would have finished that way if Ohio State hadn't put up 17 in the final frame to go on to win 26-6. Josh, what were your big takeaways from the battle between the Buckeyes and the Spartans?
Other than the intentional safety?
Well, that was pretty awesome.
Now, here's the thing. Michigan State has a really, really nice rush defense. They got a nice front seven. They're going to make games ugly. We've talked about Ohio State's rushing issues ad nauseum, so I wasn't that surprised that Michigan State uglied it up. The theme of this season for the Spartans is they got zero offense, zilch. Their running game produced 54 yards, 49 of it came from their backup quarterback who had 3 carries, 49 yards, and 47 of those 49 yards came on one long run. So you talk about a one-dimensional offense. Michigan State is 0 dimensions because neither of their quarterbacks are that good at passing, and they got nada from that running game. So it was just a matter of time before Ohio State pulled away. Hats off to the Spartan defense for playing with a lot of heart and uglying the game up and making it competitive for a while. But the far better team won, and ultimately the right team won because Michigan State has nothing going offensively.
Yeah, Coach, I agree with Josh. I think the right team won here. So going forward, did Ohio State do anything in this game that makes you think that they could be, a playoff team, or does this team just too flawed to really make a run?
I mean, every team's going to have an ugly game like this.
But they've had a couple ugly games in a row now.
Yeah, I don't feel it with. I was about to say I don't feel it with Ohio State because there's a couple of situations in this game that a playoff team would have taken advantage of and made it completely blowout city. One of them was I actually took notes on this one. I actually took notes. I watched extended highlights of a lot of these games. And I took notes, and my first bullet point was, shanked 5-yard punt. Okay? A playoff team would have taken that right down and put 7 points on the board in about 3 or less plays. Okay. The crucial momentum killer was the trick play that Michigan State scored on, and they had an eligible man downfield. You can't do that when you have a potential playoff team on the ropes. I think this game might be different if Michigan State, if that touchdown stands. I don't know that for certain, but I have a feeling that we're not kind of talking about how ugly this win was. We're talking about how we're really concerned about Ohio State at that point.
I'm still concerned about Ohio State, frankly. I still don't really believe in this team. The intentional safety, I guess it was for good field position. I don't really get that one. I also wrote,
ironically, it ultimately worked out. It just didn't flip the field because the free kick went out of bounds. So they got the ball at the 50, but Michigan State forced Ohio State to punt, and Ohio State pinned them right back down near the goal line. So it technically worked. problem was the free kick going out of bounds.
They didn't execute afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, another bullet point, I said you can't fumble a snap in your own end zone. Ohio State is a team that doesn't need help winning.
No.
I thought Michigan State was terrible. They kept turning it over. They kept giving up big plays. They kept just shooting themselves in the foot. Just anything you could do to try to not win a game. I felt like Michigan State did that. And I discredit Michigan State more than I credit Ohio State in this game. I felt like Ohio State, with as many mistakes as Michigan State had, I felt like this should have been like a 42-7 game.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Finally, it was billed as the top game of the week, but after Anthony Brown went down in the first quarter for BC, it was all but over. So, Josh, did you learn anything about Clemson in this one, or was this just sort of another run-of-the-mill ho-hum win for this Tiger team?
Oh, well, I could make a big stink about Trevor Lawrence playing north of Virginia like it matters because all the playoff games are in warm weather. No, you're right. It's just unfortunate for Boston College to have Brown go down. I thought Perry actually played all right, all things considered, being thrust into a game against one of the best offensive or defensive lines in the country. But that totally killed anything potential. It made it too easy to shut down A.J. Dillon. So really nothing was learned other than bad luck for Boston College. Hopefully they buck up and win out. That'd be a good story.
It would be. Coach, do you have any insights from this one?
Sunshine is legit.
Yeah,
I think
he's all right.
T. Higgins, legit.
Yeah, he's all right too.
I think if you are a special teams enthusiast, I think you would have enjoyed this one. That crazy Boston College special teams touchdown where he was calling Peter, and the ball just popped into his gut and he returns it for a touchdown. I thought BC played well up until the dam broke in the fourth quarter. When Rodgers had that punt return touchdown, I think everything just kind of went real downhill for them.
Mm-hmm.
BC, I was impressed with BC. All things considered, kind of
they
what they
fought,
were going
man.
through.
They fought.
Their defense is good. I thought their quarterback, I agree with Josh. He played about as good as he could in that scenario. A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, he's just not a thrower, man. He's a runner.
No.
He's not a thrower. And if you're going to be Clemson, you have to be able to throw the ball and stand in there in the pocket against that defensive line because they're going to eat you alive otherwise.
I mean, is there another offense around the country that's clicking as much as Clemson's?
I would say Alabama, but not with Tua getting hurt.
No, I mean, honestly, if you compare offense to offense, I mean, I feel better about
Oklahoma's?
yeah, Oklahoma State. They're clicking offensively. Cornelius is shit, man. That guy's fun to watch.
That guy is fun to watch. I will say that, yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't learn anything else that I didn't already know about Trevor Lawrence and that defensive line. Just they proved again in prime time against an elite rushing attack that they're just phenomenal.
Yeah, they are. They are. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, Josh, unless you have any final words.
Well, we buried the lead, possibly one of the best games of the weekend. Arkansas rallied from a 21-point deficit in the fourth quarter, scoring 14 points to get the moral victory against LSU, losing 24-17. We've highlighted some one-dimensional offenses. How about Arkansas's throwdown for the one-dimensionality contest? 200 passing yards, 16 rushing yards.
So 216 total yards.
That is correct.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy.
Wow.
Chad Morris, you've got your work cut out for you, sir. Coach, any final thoughts from you?
Well, I hate that we keep burying the lead. I want to grow this podcast, but we've got to tell our team of producers that we've got to be more on this and quit bearing this lead. But
yeah, I know. I'm sorry, guys. That's on me. That's on me. I look over the entirety of the college football map every year before I send you guys out the pre-show notes. And for some reason, that state that's north of Louisiana keeps being a black hole on the map that I have.
I will say, in all honesty, this bit will be absolutely incredible if Arkansas ever gets it turned around. Can you imagine us deliberately not previewing, say, like number 5 Arkansas at number 1 Alabama for the sake of comedy?
Yes. Josh, I've known both of you guys for too long to know that we would absolutely do that. And if we didn't do that, I would actually genuinely be disappointed.
He's got us pegged, Josh.
I've known you guys for long enough to know what would transpire in that situation. So,
yeah.
All right, Coach, any final words from you?
The NAIA Division II and Division III playoff fields are set.
Ooh.
So we got some playoff football coming up.
Nice. Nice. My final real word, not the comical bearing the lead, I got to say, hats off to Eastern Michigan. We've highlighted some of their difficulties in close games. They've done it. They're 6-5. They're going to a bowl game. Well done, Eagles.
Well done indeed. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us here tonight on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. So on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in Nashville, Tennessee, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in Chicago, Illinois, this is the professor in the Music City saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Yep, that's us.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion.